This is Merlin Berg, the producer of the Veterans Benefits blog. I have with me today Steve Lawrence. Steve is a Vietnam era veteran, and we're going to talk about his experience with the Veterans Administration and some of the activities that he's involved in the community. Steve, why don't you just give me describe some of your military service, and we'll start there.
Well, I joined the military in January of 1967. Thought I was going to the Army Security Agency and ended up in OCS at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I graduated November 22, 1967 as an infantry lieutenant, and hit Vietnam on June 17, actually, 1968, and I was there from 1969. I operated as an infantry lieutenant in combat with the 1st Air Cavalry Division until actually Christmas Eve, and I was transferred to division headquarters, where I became the protocol officer for the commanding general of the 1st Cav, whose name was George Forsyth, and I served there until June 17, 1969, when I came home. And then I went to Portland State immediately, and I went to finish my education at Portland State on the GI Bill, and later I used the GI Bill to go to law school.
Very good, very good. Tell me, Steve, tell our audience a little bit about what you do with veterans in the Dalles, and yeah.
Well, I came to Dalles in 2007 to retire, and I had been dealing with my claim for veterans benefits since about, oh my gosh, 2000, I guess, and I still had some issues ongoing. And when I got to the Dalles, I found that the Veteran Service Office was not very well maintained, not very well manned. It was hard to get a hold of anybody. You'd leave a message and maybe you'd get it returned. You didn't find anybody at the office most of the time. There was no privacy. And so one day I was downtown and I saw that the old transportation depot was up for lease, and I asked the city what they were going to do with it. They were taking proposals, so I submitted a 9-page proposal that they give it to the Veteran Service Office for $1, and delivered a copy of my proposal to the Chronicle, and they printed the next day, veterans asked for a transportation center, and I think there are some people at City Hall that still begrudge me for that, because once that was done, all the veterans showed up at the next city council meeting, and it was pretty much a foregone conclusion. So we were able to get the Veterans Service Office moved from the east end of town, way out by the county sheds, to downtown, right in the middle of downtown, in the old transportation building, where there was privacy, where there was a conference room, where there was a reception area. And now, as a result of that, instead of one part-time Veteran Service Office, we have 2 full-time Veteran Service officers, and the building is open 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. So that's made us a very specific improvement of making benefits available for veterans in Wasco County.
Well, tell me about the volunteers that work at the office and how they contribute to.
Well, one of the things that we realized is Wasco County was not very well manned because we continued to burn people out, and that means that we would have a veteran service officer who had to do everything. He had to do the intake, he had to do the paperwork, he had to review the medical records, and file the claim, fight any appeals, etc. So when we moved down to a larger quarters and got our first full-time veteran service officer, which was Russell Jones, we put together volunteers who could almost act like a legal office, and that was have a reception area, and we developed forms which would identify the claims, the nature of the claims. We would immediately get a copy of their DD-214. We would ask for a full copy of their records. If they were already in our system, then we would look up the system and see what the status was. But on the other hand, we then got a release from the veteran under HIPAA, and we had privacy documents, and what that allowed was veterans to actually go through the veteran volunteers to go through the medical records and the appeal records and give a synopsis to Russell Jones, the Veteran Service Officer. So when the file came to him, he could concentrate on making sure that the claim was done right, making sure that it was prepared so that it could not be overturned, so that if it was denied, the appeal would be successful. And interestingly enough, we got a lot of pushback from ODVA, that's the Oregon Department of Veterans Affairs, because of privacy issues. And we simply said, we're protecting people, we have confidentiality agreements, we have HIPAA agreements, we have training, and we're going to continue to do it. And finally, ODVA has come back to Wasco County and said, you're right, you're the model, and now can you explain to other people how you're doing it and why you're so successful?
Very good. Yeah, that's a great story. I've not heard that whole story myself.
Oh,
Steve,
okay.
So that's really inspiring. I think that'll a lot of veterans and veteran service officers that watch this vlog will appreciate hearing that kind of information.
And I know that if they want to talk to Russell or Patrick Wilburn, the other veteran service officers there, or any of the veterans who are intimately involved, that we would be glad to share things and help them understand why that works. If you go to ODVA now, they will concur that they agree that this is the way it should be done, and it lets us process more veterans with less time required by the veteran service officer. And so we went from, I think, 300,000 a year new benefits to well over 1 million a year now, with only 3,000 veterans, and that's been every year, $1 million new benefits, $1 million new benefits. And so right now I'm serving as mayor of the Dalles, and that's one of our biggest economic development factors in this town, is the new money that's coming in both medical services and benefits to veterans. People who at times you can go through individual stories and find people that were almost out on the street, and suddenly their claim was successful. They got a back check. They were able to move into a living space, buy a car, get medical benefits, and just turn their life around. Yeah, I mean, veterans deserve the benefits that they earned.
That's right. They deserve no more, no less.
That's right.
Yeah,
And I remember Jim Burris called me and said that he was working with the county and said that he wanted me to attend a meeting where we would talk about not only getting a full-time service officer, but how we were going to staff the new veteran service officer building. So now we have a 5-year contract for that transportation building, which is now the Veteran Service Office, at $1 a year. The county pays everything maintenance-wise inside, and the city pays everything outside. And that's the city considers that support of veterans.
So with the new facility, highlight a little bit about how that's changed in the community, what other veterans are telling you about.
Well, our walk-ins are incredible. For one thing, you know, the transportation center, now the Veteran Service Office, has got a great big sign out front. It's on Federal Street, which is literally in the middle of the Dalles on 2nd Street. And so we're starting to get walk-ins. You never got that when the Veteran Service Office was out on the east side. There were many people who didn't even know what a Veteran Service Officer was, where it was, how to access it. But we get people now walking in every day still and saying, it feels very good to have, at least in Wasco County, a very strong, functional Veteran Service Office that can go to battle and fight for you, and be supported by a good volunteer staff, and won't quit. we get denial, 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 and we appeal and we appeal and we appeal, and most of the time we end up winning.
Yeah, it's, I believe that one number I've seen that 75% of the appeals are actually approved eventually.
Right.
The unfortunate fact is that it takes years
Yes.
to accomplish that, and that's
Right.
the outrageous part of this whole system.
It's frustrating. Sometimes people die before they get their benefits, and all of that shouldn't be, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Steve, is there anything else you wanna share with the
Well-
Veterans Benefit blog audience?
No, I would say that in the Dalles, we're very lucky because we have a very active volunteer veterans program. We have what's called an ad hoc volunteer committee. We also have a memorial committee. And as a result of the efforts of the veterans working to get the Veteran Service Office going, we also have a CBOC, a community-based outpatient clinic here, that when I first got here had one part-time doctor. We now, as a result of our advocacy, have 2 full-time doctors 5 days a week. And again, that's what you can do in your community. Remember, the squeaky wheel is what gets oiled. So if you think you need that, go out, get your veterans together, invite the head of the Veterans Hospital in Portland down to your community and show them your need.
Very good,
Yeah,
very good.
okay. Thanks
Steve?
for inviting me.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and I'm sure that people watching this video blog will learn a lot and take some action.
Yeah,
So,
and just remember, even if you got PTSD, you can figure out how to move forward.